Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Death by Pony and today we're hopping back into our life. Today we're actually doing one of my favorites. I may have played a little bit of the DLC by myself. So I won't ruin anything for you. Alright everybody, let's head into our next one. Oh, I say we do boating. You perch the Kiston Island while awaiting the minutes until your sister joined you downstairs. There's quite an adventure planned for today. Lee was coming down near Sunset Bird area as part of what she called a little trip. Apparently, she thought how nice it would be to go on a private boat trip this summer to celebrate graduating and everything. What might have been an idle dream for most people turned into reality in Lee's hands. You'd been invited along for the ride by your best cousin. It was kind of insane she could make that happen. You were eagerly anticipating the adventure. We were ready to see her. The idea of being on a ship worried you a little. You were pretty mellow about it. It'd be great to see her. You got to you got to chat to Lee over the phone regular, but it wasn't the same as hanging out in person. This visit was an unexpected treat. You weren't the only one who was heading out on the trip. Liz was coming, of course. Your moms had been invited, but hadn't been able to find a time to squeeze it in. And so the trip would only involve the kids of the family, a term that stuck despite all three of you being adults now. Mom would have joked about cramping your style, but there was apparently plenty of room on the ship. Lee had been more than happy for you and Liz to bring other friends along if you'd wanted. But the trip to Sunset Bird, then even further out to where Lee and the boat would be, just wasn't feasible for most people. Not many folk lived close by. You weren't surprised when Lee had specially requested you asked one reasonable located person along, Cove Holden. Lee was all about sharing the fun and hated the idea of people being left out, and it was no secret to anybody who'd ever met Cove that he was all about any kind of sea-based recreation. When you'd asked, he'd initially been hesitant to impose, but he'd ultimately accepted the offer, just as you were thinking about your cousin and her plans for the day had your phone sprang to life. Glancing at the display, you saw that the incoming call was from Lee herself. You answered the phone without pause. Hey, Ari.
Hi.
Hey. She dove straight into the topic, the trip meetup. You could hear the thrill of excitement in her voice. I'm here now and everything is all set. All you've got to do is show up and we'll be off. Woo! She spoke quickly, animated by anticipation. Hooray! You echoed your enthusiasm. Great, can't wait to see you. Liz and Cove are definitely still on board too, right? Yep. Wonderful. There's still a bit of time before you're due to set off. Is there anybody you'd want to extend a last-minute invite to? No need to keep the guest list sparse now. It's not like we'll be bumping into anyone else joining in when we're out in the middle of the ocean. Well, there's this new guy in the neighborhood. There's this new guy I'd like you to meet him. No one really comes to mind. Well, there's this new guy in the neighborhood I like. Invite him! Ari, you've got to see if he wants to come. I need to see who your new friend is. Sure, I'll see if he can squeeze in a sudden boat trip into his busy schedule.
Talk to you later.
I'll let you go. I have to if I want to see you here in the flesh. She uttered the last words so dramatically, making them sound more like a threat than a statement. Laughing, you shook your head, see Lee chuckling along down the phone. Bye, Lee. Bye. Now that your attention was free, you looked over to the stairs to see if Liz had emerged yet, but there was still no sign of her. You figured you might as well go and see if Cove was ready in the meantime. Besides, you need to stop by Baxter's place to invite him along. Liz would catch up, you were sure. You called to the stairs to let her know the plan. You sent her a text to update her on the plan. You left her to it. She'd figure it out. Update her. You grabbed your phone one more time and let her know you had gone. With that, you hopped off the chair and headed out the front door. A sunny day greeted you, shielding your eyes with a hand. You admired the sky. It looked like good weather for heading out into the water. That was something. You heard your name called and turned automatically. Cove was the source of the call. He was standing halfway between his own house and yours. He waved at you as he walked over. You waited for him to join you. You took a step in his direction. Cove smiled at you as he covered the rest of the short distance. Hi. Well, look who it is. Ready to go? Cove nodded easily, blinking languidly in the sunlight. Then his mouth curved into a gentle smirk. First jet skis, now a boat. What aquatic transport device is up next for us? My money's on a submarine. You laughed. It had been an adventurous summer for sure. Cove grinned, pleased that he'd amused you. Ah, and I meant to tell you, I'm going to be inviting Baxter too. I've got to check if he's in now before we run out of time. Huh, really? Cove was stunned. He hadn't been prepared for an extra surprise. He shook it off, however. All right, it's not like this isn't already going to be awkward for me. He was joking, mostly. I'll wait here for you. Okay, Cove, I'll see you in a bit. You strolled over to the condo Baxter was staying in and rang the doorbell. Hitting the button, you had to recall the time Liz, dared you once before to ring this very bell. Ding dong ditch the mean old people residing here. You hadn't been up to the challenge, especially seeing how upset they made Cove for no reason whatsoever. It had been a tactical retreat, you told yourself. Now there was no winning with people like that. Before old memories could claim you, the door slid open. Baxter looked out, his head tilted in interest.
Nice to see
Harry,
you.
what a nice surprise. Who folded his arms over his chest, leaning casually against the doorframe. Is there something I can do for you? Want to head on a boat ride with my family in Cove? We're taking a boat trip right now. Are you on board? So there's this thing we're going to sort of trip now. You could come if you want to. We're taking a boat trip right now. Are you on board? His eye widened only briefly before resting back to his usual languorous expression. It was either an impressive show of resistance or Baxter's life involved more impromptu boat trips than yours, perhaps both.
I can do that.
I'd love to. What, you didn't have plans already? No, seriously, that's great. Your surprise took Baxter's mouth curling into a little smirk. My schedule is always open for impromptu itinerary. I'm flexible, remember? Oh. He was not only agreeing to come on the trip, but apparently canceling some other plans in order to make it happen. Baxter was certainly something. Thanks for keeping me in mind. I think it's going to be fun. He slid outside. After securing the door behind him, he swept out an arm indicated for you to lead the way. The first stop was to collect Cove. He was waiting as promised where you'd left him. Cove, good to see you. Hi. There was still no sign of Liz. You took the opportunity to bring Baxter up to date on the plan for the day. He took in your words with interest. Only a minute or two more passed before the door to your house finally opened. Liz framed with it like a portrait. Unlike you, she had no need to shield her eyes with a hand in order to protect them from the sun's bright rays. Her hat was performing the job admirably. Spotting you, she headed straight over. She smiled warmly at you and Cove as she approached. Her attention then promptly turned to the group's new addition. It's nice to see you again, Baxter. His eyes closed as he bowed his head in a nod ever so slightly. And the same to you. Living on the same street had given Liz and Baxter the opportunity to get to know each other over the course of the summer. Though she'd spent less time with him than you had, you'd anticipated that she wouldn't object to him tagging along on the trip. I asked him to join us today. Just as you expected, Liz didn't have much of a reaction to the change of plans. She merely raised her eyebrow.
Oh.
I feel like you and Lee will become fast friends, Baxter. Baxter smiled politely. With that, your little group piled into the car. It had been decided in advance that you'd all be heading over in Cove's car. Then you set off on your journey down the coast where you'd be meeting Lee. You wound down the South California shoreline with sparkling ocean, water on one side and the craggly cliffs on the other. The world blurred by until eventually you made it safely to the large harbor. It was far grander scale than the one near Mr. Holden's shop. Boats 2, 3, even 5 times large could fit. Liz took charge from there, calling up your cousin to guide you the rest of the way. Lee did her best to explain where precisely the boat was docked. Given that she was doing it without seeing where you were, and that it was an area she was only slightly familiar with herself, she did a pretty good job. It took a bit of fumbling, a little retracing of steps, as your cousin and your sister had different definitions of orange. That was Rusty Brown, Liz had protested. But before too long, you heard her voice calling out, not from the phone in Liz's hand, but over the wind rolling off the ocean. Searching for the source of the sound, you found her on one of the prows of a ship, jumping into the air, waving frantically for your attention. You'd arrived. Lee dashed the bow over to the gangway, where you boarded one by one. Hi everyone, I'm so glad you got here today. Could you tell? You could tell, even if she had said nothing, uh, her bright grin as she saw you all spoke loud and clear. Ahoy, Captain Lee. You smiled at her, you waved, you gave your cousin a high five. Side hug? We give her a full-on hug. You wrapped both arms around her and pulled her tightly against your chest. Squealing, Lee returned the hug just as tight. After greeting Lee, you took over the faces of the others who'd be joining you on your ocean voyage. Her attention was immediately pulled to the only one in the group that she had not met before. Grinning, she approached him.
My pleasure.
I'm Lee, so excited to meet the mysterious new man on the block. What a coincidence. I was looking forward to meeting our gracious host for the day. But I must confess, I'm not that mysterious. I'm rather open. I do hope that doesn't come as a disappointment. Not at all. I can appreciate forwardness. Welcome aboard. With that, she glanced over at the others.
Thank you.
Lee, thanks again for taking us on this lovely trip. Cove hovered awkwardly behind you and your sister, even with Liz's broad sun hat. He was too tall and the group too small to hide effectively. He made fleeting eye contact with Lee, then looked away. Hi, thanks for letting me come. The boat is cool. He chuckled nervously. Lee smiled, entertained by his bumbling phrase. Hi, Cove. She giggled as she spoke, unable to hide her amusement. Cove lowered his head. We're all gonna have a good day. You don't have to laugh at him. Cove's little game of hide and seek is pretty funny. He didn't say anything. We're all gonna have a good day. Cove smiled weakly at you. His face flushed. You could tell that he appreciated your show of support, but was still embarrassed about needing the help. The floor seemed to give beneath you as Lee whooped with delight. You realized that the ship had pulled out into the water. It had been so steady while it was marooned that you'd temporarily forgotten you weren't on solid ground. Now, as the boat rocked beneath your feet, there was no doubt you were truly setting sail. The little group dissipated into chatter or headed over to the railings to watch the ocean. You were ruffled by the breeze, which seemed stronger out on the water than it was back on the shore. The floor continued to rise and fall, reminding you of standing in a bouncy house while others jumped. It was refreshing. You were curious about how the trip would go. You felt unsure, but tried to ignore it. This was scary. You were hit with nausea. It was refreshing. As you let your surroundings truly sink in, you thought today was shaping up to be memorable. You were glad you'd been able to join Lee on this trip. We can really get the party started now. Oh, wonderful. What did you have in mind? Well, the words hung in the air as your cousin stalled. It was clear she didn't have something immediately in mind. Cove's eyes sparkled as he piped up. Can we get out of the boat, like us swimming around in the deep ocean? Sometimes you'd swear that boy was part merman, the way he was contagiously drawn to the water, but Liz immediately quashed the suggestion. No. Her tone left no room for debate. Baxter chuckled, combing a hand through his hair. I prefer to stay on board too.
Sorry,
it's not that kind of boat trip. It isn't supposed to stop anywhere. If someone did end up in the water, the captain would call the Coast Guard on us. Cove's shoulders slumped at the resounding redirection. All right. That's disappointing. Suck it up, Cove. We'll still find something fun to do, Cove. No, I'm getting in the water. You didn't comment. The decision was already made. We'll still find something fun to do, Cove. Truthfully, there isn't much we can do on the boat that we couldn't technically do back on land. I often take trips with my father on our boat. He always spends time deep-sea fishing. I'm not much of a fisherman personally. Activities that could also be done while not on the boat sound excellent to me. Visibly bolstered by Baxter's support, Lee smiled warmly at him. My dad also takes me fishing sometimes, though we do it on the dock by my dad's shop. I'm not good at it either. Baxter snickered, his expression warm as he looked at Cove. He appreciated the delicate attempt to relate, especially with how standoffish Cove normally was towards him. That's the fate of sons with their dads, apparently. How lucky we won't be doing that now. Yeah. Liz nodded. There's nothing wrong with some non-nautical themed activities. We could play party games for all I care. Yeah, we'll do party game. You saw her brow furrow just a moment as she mentally conjured possibilities and smoothed out as one came to mind. Oh, what about the one where somebody writes something down and people give clues and the other person has to guess what it is? Sure, I said party games and I stand by it. Who's guessing first? Me. Lee propped her chin on her shoulder, hands surveying the group. Ari, Baxter, Cove, then me. Sound good? Her suggestion was met with nods and murmurs of approval. Great, we can get this game going right away. With a devious grin, Lee picked up a pen and notepad from the bar counter and she twirled a glittery pen in with her fingers. Lee clarified the rules. After Cove raised a wavy eyebrow, random words would be written down and folded up and given to another player. When it was someone's turn to be the guesser, they would show everybody else the word but couldn't look at them themselves. The other players had to help the guesser find out what the word was without saying it directly. Each person was allowed to say only one clue. After all, the hints were given, then the guesser would have to decide. Lee gave each guest at the mini party a piece of paper from her notepad. It was surprisingly thick lined paper with a little starfish printed at the bottom. She scourged around to find more writing implements. She managed to dig up a short pencil with an old jelly grip on it, a ballpoint pen with a logo you didn't recognize, and a purple crayon. Baxter had a nice pen with him already, so he respectfully passed on Lee's offer. She turned to you.
Okay.
Here, pick one. Crayon. Of course. You pulled the crayon from the fan assortment of options Lee presented to you. The crayon was a lot thicker than what you were used to. It smelled like kindergarten with a hint of those restaurants that used to give crayons with their kids' menus. After the random selection of words were determined and the papers were passed around, it was time to start.
All right.
I guess we know who's going now. You unfolded the paper given to you, careful not to peek while you showed everyone else. Liz leaned in closely with a thoughtful hum. As soon as Lee had a chance to read the word, she jumped up. Dog. They're a very popular type of dog, sometimes called that. It's where scientists do experiments and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a secret location. This gave Cove an edged look. She probably thought it would confuse you. It can be used for photos as well. Dog. Look. I've had too many animals. That's it. You got it. Yeah, you nailed it. Everyone cheered. Liz gave you a round of applause. You looked at the paper. In neat tiny writing, you saw the word lab printed. Ooh, that was dumb. You breathed a sigh of relief. You shrugged. You laughed. You laugh. The hint the others had given you helped you out a lot. Even if Cove's clue was a little strange, it was fun to see where everyone's mind had gone when trying to describe the word lab. We should definitely keep this ball rolling. Baxter finished his paper out from his ripped pants pocket and presented to the group. Libby handwriting spelling the word slide. Oh, kids like it. It's for kids. Kids. Lee bounced enthusiastically, holding out a hand to indicate the short height of children. Baxter nodded slowly.
All right.
It's at playgrounds, but not really small ones. Usually the playground around our neighborhood doesn't have it if you've been there. He shook his head, still perplexed. Unfortunately, I have not. Dang. You've been to playgrounds before, though, right? Baxter had to pause to think. He shrugged.
Maybe.
In elementary school, I had recess, but we had sports field more than traditional playgrounds. For some reason, it's hard to picture you as a little kid. Well, I'd rather you not imagine that, so it all works out. Cal placed a finger on his cheek as he puzzled the game's conundrum. He tapped his face absent-mindedly. It's slippery. You can't really walk on it. Slippery. Every clue lost Baxter even more. He had no idea what the word could be. You sit on it and then go down. It's tall and long, and you have to climb up to the top. You can go on it one way, but can't really get up the other way. Actually, do you know how to do the cha-cha? It's fine. You don't get it. I'll tell you. Penguins do it on their bellies. I don't. He's a dancer. The cha-cha slide. Oh, slide. That's it. Slide. Baxter, floundering confidence, returned in full force with a broad grin.
Excellent.
I got it? He flipped the paper over and traced his fingers across the word. He smirked at it. Thank you very much for the tip, Ari. Liz patted you on the arm with approval. Nice one. You had the magical approach this time. Ko flipped open his paper and showed the crowd. He kept his hand at the back of the note so he couldn't see the word even if the light shone through it. In blocky wobbly text you read the word potatoes. You pursed your lips together as you thought what it would say. Sack. Liz turned her head with an incredulous expression while Lee continued her thought. She jumped up, pointing at the paper Cove had in his hand. You put them in a sack. Cove blinked at Lee, deeply confused. Lee smiled back, full of confidence that he would come to an understanding eventually. The major vegetables you use in croquettes. I don't know what that is.
Really?
Really? Baxter was earnestly taken aback, as if Cove had just said he'd never had toast before. Maybe we should change that. There has to be somewhere in this town that serves them, right? Liz cleared her throat, saving Cove from having to respond beyond his round. It's that Mr. toy with the different faces and things. Cove tilted his head, utterly baffled at the different directions that everybody had taken. What a Mr. toy? Liz simply shook her head at his lack of understanding, and it was your turn to try. They're brown and lumpy. There's sweet version and regular version. They're very common starchy root vegetable. Cove forget the croquet french fries. My mom loves them mashed, and Ma thinks it's bland. For your head. French fries. You gave him a look, sending the answer right to him, while filling in the blank Baxter had left. Potatoes! Or a singular potato.
Yeah.
You're right, yeah. Cove repeated again with a bright grin beaming. Potatoes! He held his hand out for you to for a celebratory high five. He smacked his hand. You gave him a fist bump instead. You gave him thumbs up. High five. You slapped his hand with a satisfying smack. He nodded, still looking ecstatic. Thanks for the hint. I don't think I would have gotten it without that. You're welcome. Congrats. Now let's go again. Suddenly, the boat tipped forward before rocking back harshly. The ship must have gone over bigger weight than usual. Liz held onto her hat desperately. Lee laughed at her immediate death grip. You never know what'll happen at the high seas. Joe, too. Watch out, Liz. You don't want to lose such a nice topper. You felt a burst of nausea come over. You started feeling really freaked out, like this in the middle of the ocean. The topper. You and Lee chuckled together while Liz stuck up her nose. However, your sister was now smiling, and her hold had slackened. The game continued with Liz and Lee taking turns. It was such a good time, and you all decided to play a few more games. Liz turned out to be the best guesser, although that could have been because you knew her well enough to give her relevant hints. Lee had to stop herself from answering on the first clue she was given, but no one really minded. All in all, everyone was glad that Lee had suggested the game. Oh, Lee shot you a grin. Why don't we have some drinks? There's a bar on the ship. Cove tilted his head in disbelief. Lee continued blithely. I'm not sure I quite know that word. I'm a little disappointed. Lee breezed past the misunderstanding as though it hadn't even happened. Lee was thinking we could mix them up and get something special. Anyone interested? Cove thought about it, intrigued. Liz smirked, recognizing the potential for chaos. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. It'll be a dream, trust me. So, who wants to make some drinks? What? It was your idea. Why don't you do it? I've mixed drinks before. If anyone else wants to try it, would be a great chance. I'm a gracious host. I want to make drinks. Cool, you're going to create something wonderful. I just know it. You wondered if you ought to ask for a request, but Lee hustled you off to the non-alcohol bar. No one else followed. Lee gave a brief tour of selection in various compartments before she went back to the table. She shouted a final message over her shoulder. Make sure there's enough for everybody. She waved, and then you were left alone with the juices. There was a fridge packed with cartons of various glass bottles of juice. Lee had placed a pitcher on the counter for you to mix things into. You started the options, trying to see just what you had to work with. There were a lot of choices. You reached into the fridge to take out some juice. You grabbed. Okay, so we have apple juice, orange juice, pineapple, mango, grape, cranberry, strawberry, mixed raspberry, blueberry, blackberry, carrot juice, papaya juice, pomegranate, coconut water. Okay, so orange, pineapple, mango, a splash of strawberry, and pomegranate. And that is all. With your juice down, you set out some glasses and poured out some for everybody. Hey everyone, come and get your juice. The group got up from the lounge chairs that they had been sitting on and came to fetch their drinks. Everyone picked up a glass and took a sip. Cove raised an eyebrow after he tried it. It was definitely into your juice mix. Cove downed the rest of his glass. In the next drink he took, he let out a satisfied sigh. That was good.
Right?
Yeah, nice work.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. The little juice experience was good time as far as you were concerned. Contently, you all stood close together, some still holding their juice cups. Lee's I scanned the group as she giggled.
Right?
This is so much nicer than having to rely on our regular phone calls to catch up, right? Before anyone could respond, Lee's eyes widened, the corner of your mouth pulled to an amused smile. Not that I don't enjoy our chats from afar, it's just more fun to actually be here together.
That's fine.
We understand, and yes, it's fantastic little party. Happy graduation, Lee, Ari, and Cove. That was followed by more cheers in celebration of your high school careers coming to an end. Lee even lifted her glass to toast to it. When it settled down, your older sister had more comments to add, and no one even had to fight over who gets to use the home phone. Lee threw her head back in the utterest laughter. The smile widened on her face. I remember that. All the times Elizabeth here was trying to push me into being less Gabby. She needed me to just stop so she could call other friends instead. Hey, many teens have a too cool for family phase.
You're welcome.
Yeah, luckily it's A-okay. I forgive Liz for being a teenager. That got a hearty laugh out of Liz. You caught a quiet snicker out of Cove, too. Then Lee drank the rest of her juice down to the very last drop. She made her way to the table over by Cove and set her cup down. Actually, Cove watched Lee, his mouth pulled into a lopsided smile. Making these juice concoctions remind me a lot of that smoothie business down at the mall, the one that lets you pick all the fruits that go into it. That was a good place. Yeah, it was the best and exactly what I was channeling when I came up with this idea. I'm glad you caught that finally. Sorry, it can take a while to get things sometimes. You all know that.
Mm-hmm.
True. That's understanding. You're sharp when you want to be. It's okay, Cove. You're good exactly the way you are. You didn't comment. He's okay. You meant it, and you hoped your face sincerely came across all right. Slowly, a warm smile spread across his face. The moment broke when the sound of Liz's quiet laughter. That's all it took to get Lee laughing, and soon after, you were all soaking up the mirth of the moment, too.
Well,
Though, all of that aside, we shouldn't leave Baxter out of the loop either. Everyone followed her lead and turned towards the guest for the summer. His expression softened as he shrugged one shoulder.
I get it.
Well, it's true I wasn't here for these stories. I do enjoy hearing about them. It's nice to only listen sometimes. Really? Cool, really mature. Thank you. His gaze traveled from Lee to Liz and then over to you. He sighed. My cousins aren't nearly as close in age as you are, and as an only child, I'm curious what that kind of relationship is like. Oh, I'm with you there. Only child solidarity. Lee nodded firmly to Baxter and then shot Cove a serious look. He crossed his arms. All right, only child solidarity. A genuine smile lit up Baxter's face. Lee clapped her hands together, pleased at the united front created. Sharing the same wavelength, you and Liz turned your faces to one another, a look and not breaking eye contact. She reached over, put a hand on top of your head.
Thanks.
That's wonderful for you three. I'll keep Ari, thanks. Your sibling shattered into laughter. The others joined in as well. The hours were spent chatting away, sharing stories, favorite memories, and as the boat drifted out to sea, as time slipped by, the sun hanging low in the sky signaled that it was time to set sail back to the harbor. The more boisterous atmosphere from earlier had settled into a blanket of comfortable relaxation. Liz and Lee were absorbed in conversation, lounging around the deck couch. Baxter sat across from them, nodding along ever now and then. You could hear laughter coming from the three of them. There were always smiles. You noted that Cove was over by himself near the juice bar your group had made great use of earlier. Chuckling, you realized he was digging around for snacks. When you were ready, you looked back to the deck and the faces of everyone you'd spent the afternoon with. You never wanted to forget that view. Then, looking out at the wide open ocean, you committed every bit of the moment to memory. You quietly thought to yourself, today had certainly been an adventure. Oh, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe and come back for next time so we can play through the rest of this, because it's exciting, it's fun, and I really want you guys to see. Anyway, I hope You have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.